Congressman Brian Mast joins me. Good evening, sir. And of course, I want to thank you, for your service. And obviously, I know that you suffered a catastrophic injury. And I appreciate you joining me tonight.
No regrets, Greta.
Yeah, I know you have no regrets. That you're a good military guy. All right, I want to talk about General McKenzie. He said that he advised against withdrawal. We saw that chaotic withdrawal and the loss of 13 members of military and other civilians with a suicide bomber. What is your thought when you hear the general say that? Because he was in charge of that withdrawal.
He was looking at very analytically the pros and cons of moving our troops out of there and the diplomats out of there and what would likely take place. They knew that Taliban and al-Qaeda had taken a stronghold in a number of provinces. They knew that there was a high likelihood that they would move into more urban areas, bigger areas of population, and that it was very unlikely that the government would be able to hold them off. That's something that the intelligence supported. That is intelligence that President Biden very directly ignored when he looked at his timelines and his actions. And that's something that's very unfortunate. President Trump wanted to be out of Afghanistan, no doubt, but he also wanted to look at the conditions on the ground and not allow for the most well-armed terrorist force in the history of our world.
And you do note he does lay blame on both presidents. But the thing that's sort of troubling to me is that neither president served. At least as I can recall. Neither president served in the military. And I bet if we went back and scoured every bit of whatever they said on the campaign trails over the years, they would say that they would be deferential to their military advisors because, I would assume that we'd find that. And if we've got the General McKenzie saying that, that this is not the way to withdraw, I mean, and at least this part was under President Biden's watch, I mean, it's rather quite stunning that we went ahead and withdrew and with catastrophic consequences.
I think, your analysis and looking at whether they had that military service and whether they give deference to the military generals, I don't personally take that part of it and buy into that part personally. I think President Trump very much listened to his military advisors in terms of taking their opinion and chewing on it and deciding what was going to happen moving forward and game planning things. I know that for a fact. And I also know for a fact, this is an important point on the other side of it. I know for a fact that President Biden stuck his head in the sand. He didn't want to see sand tables of the withdrawal. They didn't want to execute practice runs of the withdrawal because he didn't want to be held liable for the risks of what was going to happen. Those are two different scenarios.
And I didn't serve, but I mean, when we closed down that airport, which was our best way of getting aircraft in and out and rescuing people, and protecting people, that we literally left in the middle of the night. I think that whoever we turned it over to learned after we left, after we turned off the lights. That's troubling. But if you look even and I know 20/20 hindsight is very potent, but if you look at what were the indications to them that government was not going to fall? I mean, that's the peculiar thing. Even the president took off.
Well, you're bringing up one of the most important questions, and that really goes to that wire, that cable from the embassy in Afghanistan coming back to the United States of America that America hasn't been able to read, that descent cable directly talking about there's not a belief that the Afghans will be able to hold. That descent cable and the administration wanting to ignore that. That's exactly what you're talking about.
I get annoyed as a taxpayer that we're back to square one, and I look at what's happening with the women over there. I mean, they'll say we're back to where we were before 9/11. But I can't imagine if I were someone like you, who was missing 2 limbs and served, and all the other people lost lives, lost limbs, to have all of a sudden back to square one. Before 9/11 with the Taliban in control. I mean, is there a way to describe how you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're asking the question, is it worth it? Or was it worth it at the time? And I'm going to give a yes and a no, not to ride the fence. We gave an absolute beating to al-Qaeda and Taliban terrorists. For 20 years, we gave them a beating, and that reckoning after they attacked us, that had to take place. But following that reckoning that took place, we weren't wanting to see a Taliban and al-Qaeda come back in control of Afghanistan, we wanted to see a peaceful country. We wanted to see women that had rights. We wanted to see girls that were over 6 years old that could learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. We wanted people to be free there and have the opportunity to experience what a lot of the rest of the world gets to experience. We didn't want to see the most well-armed Taliban and al-Qaeda in the history of their entire history. Those aren't things that we fought for. And that was an absolute slap in the face. That was a failure of leadership, 100%.
Congressman Brian Mast, thank you very much, sir, for joining me. I hope you come back, sir.
Always.
An earlier